Welcome to the NJC's 10-minute takeaway, where we will try and cram in as much information as we can into a 10-minute workshop. I'm Tom Stenson, audit trainer and head of training for the NJC, and today I'm joined by Terry Cook, ADI, founder and host of Instructor Podcast and driving instructors to Vision Zero, and all-round nice guy. Welcome, Terry.
Afternoon, Tom.
In today's topic, we are going to be discussing how to include road safety into driving lessons. And so our 10 minutes starts now. A few sessions ago, Terry, we had Ollie Taylor from the Honest Truth come on. And we were discussing about whether other people and whether our industry sees us as road safety professionals. But we didn't really kind of go into how we're going to try and change that and how we can include road safety into our lessons as instructors. So what are your thoughts on that?
One, how we can include them in road safety in lessons. I think there's a variety of different ways. So we've got the resources we can bring in. You mentioned Ollie Taylor, so Honest Truth is one of those resources. We've got the stuff we can do on lessons, whether it's the practical stuff or whether it's the conversations we're having, and then we've got the stuff we can do with driving school. So, whether it's picking a campaign or a charity to support, or the social media we can put out there, or getting involved in stuff like Road Safety Week and those types of things. So I think there's the three different fronts we can attack on, of the resources, the in-car stuff, and then the driving school stuff.
So what is it that you do with your pupils then to try and introduce road safety into your lessons? How do you actually include it into a lesson?
I mean, look, we've got the basics. So we've got the Ghost Driver Education Matrix. So everyone covers the car control and the mastery of traffic situations, those things at the start. But then we get into the higher levels of that, and we look at the conversation. So it's when we're doing something, how are you going to manage that when your kid's in back crying? What you're going to do when your friends are taking mick. And we've had some great conversations with students around that. Going from the extremes of, well, I'll just kick them out, to, oh, I think I might cry, and everything in between. And I think that having those conversations and getting them thinking about what's coming up ahead, once they pass the test and they're by themselves, because, let's be honest, it is a different thing once they pass a test and they're by themselves. And even on a test, they've got the examiner there as a safety net, potentially. Yeah. So I think just getting them thinking about that is a good way to start. But then, as I mentioned, we've got the resources I bring into lessons. So there's a variety of ones that I pick from, but I think two that maybe 99% of people will get stuck into it. One is the Honest Truth that I mentioned with Ollie Taylor. So for those that don't know, well, first of all, go back and check out your 10-minute episode of Ollie, but a series of 2-minute videos that most of the students love, not all of them, because everyone's different, and some people don't want to watch a 2-minute video, and that's fine, because everyone's different. And the other one I put across is Drive Fit, which you can find on the Road Safety GB website, and that was created by Dr. Elizabeth Box. And it's around driving and learning to drive, and it's got things on the hazard perception on there and stuff like that. Now, that one I don't bring into lessons, but I send it to my students, and where appropriate, I send it to their parents as well, because it shows the stuff that they won't think about necessarily. And then when they see it, I tend to get two responses. It tends to either be like oh wow, I didn't realize all that, right? And they're kind of coming head first, or there'll be one thing that catches their attention. Now, again, admittedly, not everyone is going to watch it and pay attention, but the ones that do will usually get engaged in one way or another.
And I think you've hit a really important part there for me, is that gap that we need to bridge, because I think a lot of parents, when they were taught, it was, you do a few lessons, you go and pass your test, you do lots of test routes, and there's all those kind of myths. So bridging that gap for us now, I think is really important. So how do you find that parents take to that then? What are the main responses that you often kind of get from them?
Do you know what? It's a real mixed bag. And I think this is one of the problems we have, because we might get a negative response, and that's the one you remember. You don't always remember the positive ones.
Yeah.
So that there are some parents that jump in that didn't realize this stuff, or whether whether it's because of the drive or whether it's something we've spoken about on the lesson and the student's gone home and said it, and then they'll get in touch. So there's some really good positive response, but there's also some not so positive, and my thing is, can I bring them over to my way of thinking a little bit? So if they're all the way over here, I might never get them this far, but I might get them this far. And I think that that's what I want to aim for. And the interesting one for me is that I generally find that it's the parents that have parents that have kids that they've been teaching to drive for a long time and are kind of driving quite well that tend to have the biggest problem because they're not seeing any of those issues with their kids. So because they're not having any of those issues, oh, this will be all right. And it's almost lulling them into a false sense of security. So I think as with anything, there's no one answer to that. But I think we need to do something. I really do. And if we can offer it, some people will take it, some people will refuse it. Some of the people that take it will jump in wholeheartedly, some will jump in a little bit, and some will dismiss it. But again, if we can bring them over slightly, that could be the thing that saves them from a collision or makes them think about, should I just quickly check my tires before I go for this drive today? Or, something like that. I think we've just got to aim to nudge people over where we can.
And I think it is important I think I was saying to Ollie as well when we had him on that, if we don't have these conversations and we don't attempt to try and do this, we won't help any pupils. But even if I chat to 1,000 pupils and I only help one of them to avoid an accident, that's better odds than zero. It's not where I'd like it to be, Terry, but it's better than nothing. So one of the things you mentioned a second ago as well, or previously when we were talking, was about some of the other things that we can tend to do in lessons. And I think it links to where we're talking about parents as well, because when I often chat to parents, they say, oh, Fred's doing really well. And then when I chat to Fred, I find out that actually Fred's just doing the same route over and over, to school or to college or to football. And that for me is just the same as kind of going off and doing test routes. You're not really giving them the real life experience they need. On a session this week, I was with a trainee driving instructor. He was observing one of my lessons. And one of the questions he asked me after was, the car park that you went to with that pupil was really difficult. I said, what do you mean it was really difficult? He went, well, it's on a hill. There were loads of cars there. There was only a few spaces. There were people pulling up in coaches. I go, yeah, it's a real car park. So that's what I want my pupils to go and deal with is real life scenarios and not that empty car park that they're just going to go and do on their test.
So I think I agree. And look, you're asking me this when we've got about 2 minutes left to record. So the thing I would say is we use the phrase safe driving for life. We've always used that as instructors. And I remember my instructor saying that to me. And I think back and like, you didn't teach me safe driving for life. You taught me how to steer. And you look at what I learned so many years ago. It was nothing to do with driving and different scenarios and situations. It was getting from around the test area and learning how to park where you can park or whatever. And one of the examples I use is nighttime driving, because it's a summer now. No one's having a nighttime lesson unless they're doing it at 10 p.m. So are we teaching safe driving for life throughout the summer, or are we teaching safe daytime driving for life throughout the summer? Now, that's not me saying every instructor should be doing 10 p.m. lessons, but we could be. Well, I am. I'm starting 2 a month, and I'm not saying that everyone should, by the way. That's not me saying that's what everyone should be doing. My situation is quite unique, but it's things that we can look at to make these real life situations, so that they're passing August and then September, it's getting dark again. So they're not getting thrown into that for the first time. So whether it's nighttime driving, whether it's parking in between two cars rather than just in the empty bays, whether it's multi-story car parks, proper dual carriageways, not just the ones near Test Centre where you jump on for 2 minutes where there's no slip road, but actual slip roads. Rush hour driving, I hate driving in rush hour, but this kind of driving as well. So I think it's putting them in those scenarios so they get that experience, so they're not just relying on the one thing we once said to them 20 hours ago because it happened to us on our way over to their lesson. They're actually experiencing it firsthand as well.
And very quickly, because again, it was mentioned earlier, I'm quite lucky with my learners because every single one of my learners often has a trainee instructor in the car with them, whether they're taking the lesson or whether it's just them observing. So all of my learners are used to having other people in the car and interacting in the lesson, which again, for me, is that real life thing. The amount of times I hear learners and go, yeah, the first time I had somebody different in the car was when the examiner got in. So what do you try and do to sort of encourage that with your learners?
Here's what I would say to that is that each instructor listening to this or watching this is going to do their own thing. It's almost impossible for us to get every single component of road safety into it. Again, my example before, I'm quite happy doing 2 10 p.m. lessons a month, but most instructors won't want to do that. So when you ask me about getting people in the car, that's not something I do. It's I should do, if I'm being honest. It's maybe something I should look at. But I think what we need to do is step back and go, right, what extra, if you like, maybe that's the wrong word, but what extra can I bring into these lessons that is appropriate for me as a driving instructor? Because I can't necessarily do everything, but what can I bring in? And I think that's the important thing. So at the minute, I'm not bringing in those extra passengers, but I'm bringing in the nighttime, I'm bringing in the motorways, I'm bringing in the dual carriageway, the multi-story car parking. I hate McDonald's drive-throughs, so I avoid them, but every now and again, I even do them. So I think a lot of that is we've also got to do what's right for us because it is our business and it is us as well. But I do think we need to do more.
Fantastic. Well, that is the end of our 10 minutes, Terry. Can I just say thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully we'll get you back on again soon.
Lovely to be here, Tom. Thank you.